So I'm in the forage bean, the Extend Flex 4120 from Eagle Seed. I'm standing here in this food plot that I did a video on back in early September. And I'm just going to kind of recap some of that video, and then as far as how the beans held up throughout the season and into the late season. And so with that video that I shot then, I kind of talked about this particular forage bean. And I know a lot of people are sometimes turned away, especially hunters, from forage beans because they think that they're going to grow up to be 6-7 foot tall. There are certain blends that will do that, but this particular blend does not. It averages out at around 4 foot tall. These ones only made it to about 3.5, which was perfect. Being a bow hunter, I don't want a super tall bean because I might have a shot opportunity of a deer in the beans, and with them being too tall, I might not be able to take that shot or make that shot with beans in the way. So these are a perfect blend for that, being that they only grew to about 3.5 foot tall. With that, people think that they don't put on a lot of pods. Well, these ones did. And that was apparent in the last video when the beans were done essentially growing for the most part. They had not lost their leaves. They weren't going to lose their leaves and start to change colors for a few more weeks after that video. In fact, I hunted here in this stand that I hung at the end of September, and these beans were still green. I had already taken the fence down. This plot's only around 2 acres behind my house, so we had to fence it to kind of keep deer off of it throughout the summertime. Hunting here late September, the beans were still green. This was the destination food source. We have Clover Keeper over here that was more of the staging plot to catch the deer, passing through as they went to this main food source. And I ended up killing a doe that night in late September when Dawson and I hunted here. We saw a lot of deer. We ended up seeing, I think, more bucks than we did does, which is kind of a rarity because we have a higher deer density here where I live in central Missouri. And it was a fun hunt. Ended up shooting that doe, killing her. Most of the deer were filtering right through. Some were kind of hitting the corn, but for the most part, they were headed to these beans because we were dealing with a drought. A lot of the forage within the timber was already basically going dormant because of the lack of rainfall. But these beans held up throughout the drought that we had this summer and early fall and did phenomenal. I couldn't have asked for a better blend. Very pleased with these. Going throughout the year, the beans ended up turning colors to yellow and losing their leaves into October at some point. I want to say late October. And then November, I don't think that there's a food plot out there that you could really key on too well, at least through the rut, because deer have one thing on their mind, and it's not food. We all know that. And then into December, these beans began to play a very vital role in food source for deer, and then also into January. And that was very apparent. Being able to watch the deer from my house and my barn is pretty awesome to see, because you can kind of see the stages throughout the year and how the deer react to that and what they're feeding on. And so in December and January and now February, I can still see them out here in the evenings. They are just hammering these beans. The beans have held up well. I would say there's at least 50% of the pods left, if not more. I don't believe the beans are shattering too much and hitting the ground. The bean that I'm seeing on the ground, I believe, are from deer being in here feeding, munching on pods, and then the seed or the bean actually falling out and them not eating all of it and it hitting the ground. But for the most part, I don't think they're shattering. They're withstanding the browse pressure heavily right now. On the cold evenings when we had snowfall over the last month, there were 30, 40 deer hitting these beans and the corn in the evening, and most of them were keying in on the beans, I would say. This blend of beans, I will definitely plant again. I was very impressed with, and I think you will be too. I think some people may be turned away from beans because they think, oh, well, I don't have a planter or a tractor to where I can put beans in. Well, Ty, a guy that's also a part of Heartland Bow Hunter, is a great example of someone that doesn't even have a planter. And so sometimes he can borrow one from friends. Some years he hasn't been able to, and he's gone in and tilled up dirt and broadcasted Eagle Seed beans and had very good success with it. Ty does actually plant a higher, a much taller forage bean. He wants that, and he catches deer as they go into there. But with him being able to broadcast them, he's had very good success. He's gone in, tilled up the dirt, and just broadcasted at a, I'd say like a lightly to moderate lightly rate to try to make sure that he doesn't plant them too thick. They fill in the canopy, and he's had great success with that. He sprays them as well. He'll go in and spray them once with glyphosate. He'll run some beans over with his four-wheeler and when he sprays them, but for the most part, it's done phenomenal, and he's had great success with it. He's been doing, I think, for probably 4 years now, and never had a year where he hasn't had a good crop of forage beans, just going in, tilling it up, and broadcasting beans. So if you don't have access to a planter, it's still a possibility to go in and plant these beans. But anyhow, I'm going to move on to the Clover Keeper, and I'll give you my summary on that. So now I'm standing in the Clover Keeper plot that we have here, and I'm a huge proponent of clover. I've been that way for years now, and this particular clover plot is about an acre and a half long. Pretty big one for clover, I would say. Oftentimes we have much smaller ones. Sometimes they're maybe like a sixth of an acre. And with Clover Keeper, you've got a mixture of red and white clover that they've done many trials on, and the tonnage that this plot puts on is phenomenal. We're in the dead of winter, and you can still see greenery in here. There's virtually no greenery anywhere, so deer are hitting this. I wouldn't say that they're keying in on it. I think they're hitting the grain more than anything right now, but this is still an option for them, and a limited option, I might add, at that. So they are still hitting it. I shot a video with my phone January 15th, not in this plot, but another Clover Keeper plot, where the deer had been digging it up out of the snow. It was insane to see. We had about a foot of snow on the ground. The deer had dug up places all over in that plot. There wasn't even this much greenery or tonnage in that particular one because they'd been hitting it so hard. They were digging up the roots and the stems in the snow. And I think the reason being is because they knew that food source was blanketed across that particular spot. Whereas like in an ag field that had been cut, which was the only other or the only grain source available right there, your grain is sparsely littered throughout the field. So they could be digging aimlessly out in an ag field and not find food, where they could be in the food plot, the actual Clover Keeper plot. And anywhere they dig, they're going to find stems and clover because it's so densely populated all throughout that plot. So they were digging it up and finding the stems and roots and eating them. And, some people think that clover is only a good early season food source. Well, that was a good example of how it's available to deer, and they are actually hitting it even into wintertime. So all throughout the season, I found clover to be king. I always say clover's king. I think it's a great food source for guys that aren't super serious into food plotting. It is the easiest one out there, in my opinion, to grow. All you got to do is broadcast the seed. I wouldn't recommend broadcasting it in the heavy thatch layer. I'd recommend getting rid of that heavy thatch layer, but you can go in the wintertime right now. If you got bare dirt, that's probably the best case scenario, and you just broadcast it on frozen ground. You got snow on the ground, or if the ground's just frozen, just broadcast it out, and that clover is going to be the first thing to germinate up once that ground falls out in the spring. With your warming and thawing throughout the winter, it's going to work that tiny little seed into the dirt, and the clover is going to be put into the ground, and then it'll be the first to germinate there in the spring. So clover, I'm a huge proponent of. Very easy to maintain, and deer absolutely love it all throughout the season. Next, we'll move on to the 110-day Roundup Ready corn.
Midwest Land Group has changed the way land is sold and is the only brokerage to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee. If you're looking to buy or sell property, don't before you talk to us.
On to the Roundup Ready and Liberty Ready 110-day corn from Eagle Seed. Our corn did pretty dang well. This is one of the best corn crops that we've had this year, and reason being, I think, is just because we got it in so early. I think it's been like 3 to 4 years now we've been dealing with drought here in Missouri, and it seems like the earlier you can get your corn in, the better. This corn matures obviously in 110 days, and with that, we had a great yield, very high yield, ton of corn, very drought resistant corn, which was also a key feature, thankfully. Like I said, dealing with the drought each year has been tough the last 3 to 4 years, and having a drought tolerant corn paid off big time. It was okay early. Really, I would say the biggest reason that we plant corn is for late season hunting. Here in Missouri, it is legal for us to come in and mow down corn, and that's what we did. We cut some corn down, and had a very high deer density of deer coming in every evening. It was fun to see. it was a mixture between the deer hitting here, this corn, and then going over to the beans. So my recommendation on corn is kind of observe what your limited resources in your area. If there's a lot of soybeans planted in your area, then I probably tend to plant corn. If there's a lot of corn planted in your area, then I might lean more towards planting beans. We did both, just kind of test to see what the deer like, and I wouldn't say that they preferred one over the other, but we neglected the beans late season and they were definitely hitting the beans as well. So it was kind of a toss-up as to say which one they were hitting. I've seen deer hit this first and then go right over the beans, so it just depends on what they're wanting that evening, I would say. But very satisfied with the corn. This particular blend is set up for the Midwest and Southern regions. Eagle Seed has now come out with a 98-day corn for the Northern region, if that's where you're at. So I would encourage you guys to check it out. It does well with all soil types. But overall, a really good blend of corn, and satisfied with the results. All right. To recap all of this, you can kind of see my house back there to get the lay of the land. And then you've got the 2 acres of Extend Flex forage bean rolling into the acre and a half of Clover Keeper that I'm standing in, and then the 110-day corn, 2 acres going that direction. So all 3 of these, you can kind of tell how they tie into one another. It's really just a big L shape, to be honest. And it's fun to see. It's fun to watch from my house and see how these plots fare throughout the fall and what the deer are keying in on through the phases of the year. Now to the part where you're probably wondering, well, if I had to pick one, which one would it be out of the 3? I would ask you, what is the limited resource in your area? I would go out, check your farm or the ground that you hunt to see, is there any voluntary clover coming up, and kind of let that be the determining factor if you want to plant clover. Or if you are not very serious into food plotting and you don't have the availability, or you don't want to go through the steps to plant grain, you just want something easy or small, I would highly recommend clover in that instance because of how easy it is to plant. All you gotta do is broadcast it in the winter time to get it established. It's very drought resistant, withstands heavy deer pressure, deer browse, and just low maintenance. Mow it a couple times. You may have to spray it once to get rid of some grass or weeds, and that's literally it. You'll have a lush clover plot that withstands heavy deer pressure. If you're going to go the more serious route with the grain, I look at surrounding farms, your neighboring farms, to see what crops are planted. For here, there's no corn planted within 2 to 3 miles. So having corn right here, I feel like is a very limited resource. It attracts a lot of deer to that. But given the fact that we have beans, I'm very pleased we planted this particular blend of soybean from Eagle Seed, because yes, we have beans right down the road that are about a half a mile away. These beans are a different blend. With this forage bean, it holds onto its leaves much later than that agriculture bean down the roads. Leaves drop on those at the end of September. These ones hold on into October. They're still green at the beginning of October, whereas those have lost their leaves and have no leaves. So the deer were keying in on that late September, early October, because of it being a limited resource, and it played a vital role in early fall. Late season, it's playing a vital role, obviously, because those beans have been cut, and this is the only standing food in the area, and you guys saw in the video earlier how many deer have been flooding into there. So I just look at that, what the limited resource is, the limited food resource, to help you determine which blend you should go with. I don't have any fall blends here just because of the given fact that, we've had 3 to 4 years of drought. I don't feel like gambling with that right now until I see that pattern change. I probably won't plant that here at my house. At our other farm up north, we've done some fall blends and had success, but we tend to get a little bit more rain up there, so that's why I haven't done the fall blends here. But Eagle Seed also offers those. So hopefully this video helped you determine what you want to plant in 2025. If you guys have any questions, make sure you leave comments below. I'm happy to answer any of those. And if you like this type of content, let us know. And support us by buying maybe a hat or t-shirt, maybe an arrow wrap or something like that. Also, I encourage you to check out this video that I did on the forage beans earlier this year, and look for more land management content from us in the future.